Design Pickle is a big supporter of everything unSeminary. If you haven't heard, they are a flat rate, unlimited use graphic design service helping churches across the nation. We're a proud client of theirs and love how they help us make social media graphics and those downloadable PDF article summaries that we've been sending out. Even if you have a designer, you need to check them out. To learn more, visit designpickle.com/churches. On that same page, you can watch a totally free 30-minute video of me and the founder of Design Pickle talking about modern church marketing. And of course, pickles.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the unSeminary podcast. Are you looking for practical ministry help to drive your ministry further, faster? Have a sinking feeling that your ministry training didn't prepare you for the real world? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in pursuit of stuff that we wish they had taught in seminary. Buckle up and let's get started with this week's unSeminary podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the unSeminary podcast. My name is Rich Perch, the host around these parts. I am so glad that you've decided to spend some time with us today. We know that you've got a lot going on. We say this all the time. We know you've got a lot going on at your church, but it's true, and we're just honored that you would take some time out today, pop us in your earbuds, and listen into today's conversation. I'm really honored to have today's guest, Brad Lomenick, with us. Brad's a fantastic leader. He's one of those guys that knows everybody, so you can't ever seem to get away from him. He spent 12 years leading the Catalyst movement, which you may be familiar with the Catalyst Conference or Catalyst One Day, really a movement of emerging leaders. Currently, he's a founder of an organization called Blinc. He's a leadership consultant, speaker. He's the author of a great book that I want to make sure you learn a little bit more about it. But Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich. Awesome to be on, man.
No, and I'm so glad you're
here. I'm a first-time caller, but long-time listener. So.
Nice. That's great. Well, here we are, spinning the stacks of wax.
That's right.
Taking requests from Brad.
If you have a second life, if you want an alternate career, you could be a radio host. I'm telling you, funny. You got the voice for it.
Oh, nice. I got the face for it too, so that's a good thing. So.
Listen, you and I both. We have the hair for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, why don't you kind of give people the Brad story? I know that's really hard, but kind of compress down. Give us a bit of your background. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah. Oklahoma born, grew up outside of Tulsa, a little town called Bristow, went to school at University of Oklahoma. So we are the only team this year in the college athletic world that got two teams into the Final Four. Now,
nice.
we didn't do much once we got there, but football and basketball, we both had
amazing
teams in the Final Four. So, hey, we're this little outpost in the middle of nowhere. University of Oklahoma that's doing great things.
Nice.
But I was a history major in college, and which is pretty much worthless.
Well, I was going to say you use that every day in your career.
Yeah. I think I was just anti everything else, so I just decided that I could. I liked history, but
Yes.
I graduated, thought I was going to go to law school, and then went and spent 5 years on a ranch in Colorado, and that was like this formative years of work ethic and work theology and getting, understanding what the idea of what does it mean to actually like be in the middle of an organization and learn how to lead and deal with people. But it was a total 90-degree turn from what I thought God had sort of planted on my life, which was to be in politics and to sort of be in the middle of that world of culture. And so after working on this ranch and riding horses and wearing Wranglers and playing cowboy, truly I was a cowboy.
Yes.
I ended up connecting with a couple of guys who had a small consulting firm and went and joined up with them. I knew nothing about consulting, knew nothing about management stuff. I was a history major and then worked on a ranch riding horses.
Right. There's a logical connection there between that and consulting.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of our clients at the time, this was the late 90s, one of our clients was an organization called INJOY, which if anybody follows John Maxwell, they know that was, his original organization. And so I got involved with John, and just the more I got connected into that world, first as a consultant, then second as a, sort of much more involved free agent, and then third as a full-time employee. I got connected with Catalyst and with all of the events and simulcasts and leadership stuff John was doing. And so really my teeth have been cut for the last 16 years, 17 years on being around the organization that John created. And there's been several manifestations of that, and there's been lots of different, expressions of it. But I feel like my leadership heritage and the things I've learned about leadership have been really swimming in the pool and being in the slipstream of John Maxwell. And so obviously Catalyst for me was a huge part of that story. And the last year and a half, we can talk more about this, but I stepped out of leading Catalyst, and now I'm basically unemployed. That's what I tell people. I don't really have a job, although I did. I have my own little thing, and I do a lot of advising and consulting, and it's great. Atlanta's home. Passion City Church is home church, so I spend a lot of time and energy and bandwidth, and a lot of my sort of emotional and spiritual capital is invested. Well, a lot of my spiritual capital is invested in the house of Passion City Church, and so that's obviously a really small movement. The Passion conferences and Passion, they're not doing anything significant. So I get to play in lots of different sandboxes. I'm not married. Right. I'm the most eligible bachelor in all of Christianity.
Nice, great.
So
check out bradlomenick.com if you're interested.
I feel like I should be the spokesperson for eHarmony. I'm that guy.
You're that guy. Nice.
So yeah, but I'm fully, as Craig Groeschel would always say at the Catalyst One Days, like he actually is employable. He doesn't live at home with his parents. He's a normal person.
Right.
It just never happened for me. So it's given me a lot of opportunities to do other things in life. But that's my Reader's Digest version.
No, I really appreciate that, Brad. I as someone who's benefited, before I knew you, has benefited from your ministry through Catalyst, I just say thank you for your, years of leadership. Just incredibly influential. I'm just, so thankful for this. You'll get a kick out of this. A couple years ago, this was probably 5 years ago now, I was at Catalyst, and this guy stops me. I'm just there. I'm just an attendee, right? I got my bag. I'm walking around or whatever, checking out the vendors, and this guy stops me. He said, "Hey, wait a second. Can I take your picture?" And I said, "What? No, you just stand there. I'll tell you in a minute why. Can I take your picture?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And he takes my picture, and then I said, "Why did you take my picture?" He said, "Well, my wife was asking who's attending Catalyst. What's the kind of person that attends Catalyst?" And so I saw you, and you're the guy. You're the person that attends it. I was like, "Oh, I think that's a compliment."
You're the poster boy.
I know. I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." I don't know if that's
you probably had your cool bag. That was some
saddle
had
bag
some
or whatever.
Yeah, and had a triple bottom line cause tied to it, and you had your hipster glasses on, and
exactly.
Exactly. I like to call what my style, Rich. You'll appreciate this because you and I probably are the same level of style, which is it's the classic hipster.
Yes,
that's
sure,
what I want to be. I want to be the classic hipster.
Nice.
I'm not trying too hard, but.
Right.
But I can still run with the big boys as it relates to fashion.
Yeah, I just can't have the beard. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Me too. Yeah.
Nice. Well, what I thought was kind of interesting, you've been on the development side of organizing a lot of events, and still really do a bunch of that work, which is great. And a lot of people that listen in, we're consumers of those kinds of experiences. As someone that leads those type of events, what would you say are some best practices of kind of getting the most out of them? We invest a lot of time, effort, energy, money to go to these kind of things. How do we, extract the most out of them for our ministry and for us personally?
Great question. First would be this.
Yeah.
Go with your team. And I don't say that now as a card carrying Catalyst person that's trying to get more registrations. I truly say that as a somebody who produced and now consumes conferences. Like the best way to experience it is with other people. And your team, the shared experience many times is what you bring back that has the most value and is the most memorable. Most people don't remember like who spoke or what thing happened, but they do remember the conversations.
That's very true.
That are occurring in the van or in the rental car or on the plane ride back or at dinner that night. So that one's huge. The second one would be figure out like who. Have a list going into the event or conference or gathering of who do you want to meet, and that could be everybody from I want to meet that speaker, or I want to meet this person from this publisher
church or whatever,
or the other church. I want to meet that other executive pastor. I want to meet that worship leader, and sometimes it's sometimes we go into it going, I just want to meet everybody, and then we meet nobody because we didn't really have like a set sense of what would success look like. So figure out who you want to meet, and then look for opportunities to build community. And what I mean by that is find those ways that you're both adding value to other people, as well as building your own infrastructure. And that could be simply walking, as you said, you were walking around looking at the booths and your organizations there. Well, like, don't just walk around and look at those. Like, actually have talk with them. They are so hungry to actually connect with people. And I've talked to people who said, I talked to that publisher that was at Catalyst at their booth, and they connected me with an editor, and now all of a sudden I got a book deal.
Right.
Because I was just walking around paying attention to just people who were there. And what things like Catalyst, things like Leadership Summit, things like any other event you put in there.
Orange Conference, whatever.
Orange Conference. The people who show up are actually leading and trying to get better. So you've got this collected really energy of a lot of like really high level people that that's the best thing you can take away. Absolutely. It's that sense of how am I adding to you? You adding to me. And obviously the sessions are great, the speakers, the bands, the experience, the program, all that. But that's not what is the most that's not the most authentic / available to you in the sense of only what you can take away. Like you can go buy the DVD sets, or watch online, all the content. Content is a commodity now. I mean, so conversations, community connections, those are the things that you have to lean into and actually make sure you get out of something like that.
Oh, it's so true. I remember years ago, a mutual friend, Kerry Newhoff, I worked for him for a little bit. We went to a conference together, and we had a team of people that we took, and I still remember, it was literally that experience. I can't remember what, insert brand name pastor said that morning, but that night I still remember we went out for frozen yogurt, and it was just our team around the circle, and it was a really tender conversation, and I still that sticks with you, right? Those experiences stick with you. And then the same I've said to other folks, you sit down even in a Catalyst, you have thousands of people, you're going to end up in a row beside some people you don't know, and you're probably going to be there early because you're got nothing else to do. So say hi to them, hey, tell me about who you are, and you'd be amazed the people you run into, and you're like, wow, that's incredible. You're just sitting here beside me. For sure.
I mean, and I think that the lesson is if you're going to spend the dollars and the energy to get there, then put in the energy to actually create your own experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, you have to truly look at this as, I'm going to go make my experience better than if I was just to sit back and go, okay, I'm here now, Catalyst or Orange or Leadership Summit. You entertain me.
Yeah, do something to me. Yeah,
you connect me. And conference people, anybody that puts on events, the greatest pain point that most conference organizers feel is that I'm not actually connecting people. I'm not actually creating community, even though you'll talk about it and it looks good on a marketing brochure. Most conferences are awful at creating community because you're the easiest thing to do as a conference organizer is to produce content.
Right.
That is the thing that is the lowest barrier to entry. So, it's up to you many times as the attendee to actually put more energy into creating your own sense of my shared customized experience that I walk away and go, wow, I met 5 people who are going to be friends now for the next 10 years, and I'm going to be able to learn from and so that's crucial.
Yeah, when you were producing Catalyst in the early days, it seems like you led the way, at least in the Christian market, in the there was obviously you got music, you got speakers, there was kind of what stuff you would say is typical programming, but then at least Catalyst was the first place I'd been where there was games in the lobby and goofy stuff going on out in front of the the arena. Was that a part of what was driving some of that thinking? We got to get people kind of doing stuff active together. Was that what was going on there?
Yes, for sure. I mean, Louis Giglio would always say, I know if I'm at Catalyst, if there's a clown walking around on stilts in the front front parking lot,
Yeah.
and there's some kind of animal in the back parking lot.
Yeah, it's
He
true.
said I knew I was a catalyst if that was
Yes.
happening.
No, that's very
Now,
true.
the reason for that was a couple of things. One, we wanted to create margin.
Okay.
And because we know as leaders and as conference people, we had watched other events. When you have margin in the program, you're able to actually retain more knowledge and content because you're giving your brain the opportunity to be amused. And this, like a lot of events you go to, it's just like serious.
The
more
most
content,
important topic you've ever
content.
you've
Yeah,
ever heard.
and
Yeah.
at some point you just go, stop. Like, I'm done. I can't take anymore. And so we wanted to create those margin moments because it actually helps you retain better. Secondly, it's just more fun. I mean,
Right.
why are we getting rid of humor, of fun, of experiences and shared experiences? Breaking world records, having games in the lobby, like creating an environment where people are actually doing something as a row or as a room. The idea that there's funny, like we were always priding ourselves on, let's make sure we have elements of humor.
Yes. Right.
Because humor is giving it's actually creating margin. But here's what it also does, Rich, which this is so important to us, was that we were taking away any sense at an event like Catalyst that there was somebody in the room who was more important than somebody else.
Oh yes, great equalizer.
The speakers, the bands, the people on stage, like we were intentional, not about making fun of them. It was not about making fun of them. It was showing every other leader in the room, you know what, like Andy Stanley is willing to be made fun of.
Right.
Like, we can make a video of Andy and show like these highlights where he's it's not the best of Andy because everybody goes, wow, like Andy is pretty cool. Like I don't know Andy, but he's down to earth. Like he let those guys create a video that makes fun of him. That says something to leaders that says, well, maybe I shouldn't take myself so seriously.
Right, exactly. Maybe I'm not that big of a deal. Yeah, it was interesting. Even at our church, we found a fair amount of power in that kind of, we call it foyer fun moments, where we're trying to find ways.
Foyer fun, I like that.
Yeah,
foyer
to
fun.
kind of move our experiences out into the foyer. And the way I've described it for our own team is we want a speed bump as people come and go, that we want to deliberately slow people down. We want to be inefficient. And so, we've done all kinds of crazy stuff. We did this last Christmas, we did a whole Star Wars theme thing, which I thought every church in the country was going to do, but people didn't. And so we had like Darth Vader one week in the, foyers. We had, Chewbacca. We had, we spent all this money on costumes, and it was just fun moments. Or years ago, we did a series on Jonah called Big Fish. And we bought the largest catfish we could find, like these big 20-pound, 30-pound catfish, and had a photo booth where we were saying, hey, come get your picture taken with these massive catfish. And it's just awesome. A fun, and really just it's, trying to learn off of events like Catalyst and other, experiences like that, trying to slow people down. Hey, like, it's okay. Let's have some fun. Let's, hopefully reinforce where we're going today, that it's, you don't have to wait until they're sitting down and the countdown clock is done to, jump into the experience. For sure.
I think for for leaders listening and watching, are they watching this or are they just listening?
Yeah, some people watch. Yeah.
Okay, but I think what you want to always think is, if the more serious we have to go, in the sense of the more deep we're going to dive, the more willing you have to be to let people have time to breathe and have moments of margin. And sometimes we think just the opposite. Like the more serious it is, the less we have to create humor. And I would say just the opposite, like because people want to see that you're real, you're personal, you're human, you're authentic, you're approachable, you're vulnerable. Like all those things are that's the pain point that people are looking for, or at least they're experiencing is, man, if you're going to tell me something that's really deep and heavy, I just want to know that like you care about me and that you know me enough to allow me to like have some fun and because that's the essence of life. Like nobody lives a boring, mundane, serious life.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when I first heard you stepped away from Catalyst, I was like, "Ooh, what's going on?"
Right. What's the real story?
What's the real story? And you ended up writing a book that kind of talked about the hinge of that, called H3 Leadership. But I wonder, if you give us a bit of your thinking behind that. I think for a lot of people, so I'm importing now what people may think, but they look at a guy like Brad and say, "Hey, like top of his game, super influential, thousands of people are coming to your events a year." And in the midst of that, you say, "You know what? I think I'm going to tap out. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to London for 6 months or something."
Right.
Give us what happened in that transition.
Well, I tell people that I Barry Sanders it, and I like to use Barry Sanders as a verb instead of a noun. I just Barry Sanders it. I mean, the simple way to say it is I wanted to step out of the way and get out of the way before people had to tell me to get out of the way. And I think transition and succession and legacy and leadership is so important. And when I was around in the early days of Catalyst, this was 2000, 2001. Gabe Lyons was there. Gabe was leading Catalyst at that time, and now leads Q and other things. And Jeff Schinnebarger and Maxwell and like there was a circle of people. And I was a consultant in the early days, and then I got involved. But a lot of us kind of looked at each other who are in our late 20s, and we didn't make a pact. We didn't sign a contract, but we kind of looked at each other and said, you know what, like we're all in our late 20s. If we get to 40. And we're still here, and we're still like doing this. Right. Somebody kick us in the shins, somebody punch us in the throat and tell us to move on.
Right.
And I got to 40.
Yeah.
And I looked around and was like, okay,
I'm still here.
I'm still here. And all the other guys, all the other team that was on the like execution team and on the original team had all moved on to other things, leading great stuff. And I just felt like, you know what, like I need to do what we said we were going to do. And I need to be that guy that hands this off. And Catalyst has never, and will never be about one personality. If it is about anybody, it's about Andy Stanley.
Right.
And John Maxwell in the early days, but Andy Stanley.
Right.
Most people don't even know who I am.
Right.
And they don't really care. Like they're not going to not come back to Catalyst because
which is a strength of your leadership, a strength of what you built for sure.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what we wanted to try to do, was to create this thing that was non-personality, and nobody cared really who was behind the curtain, pulling the strings. And the thing for me too was that there were certain things, Rich, that I was starting to have opportunities to do. That only I could do, in the sense of, as the leader of Catalyst, like I was being given seats at other tables. And all of a sudden it wasn't a tension, but it was like, man, if I can only do this thing over here, then shouldn't it be good leadership for me and good legacy for me to start handing off the things that someone else can do? And over time, it was like, you know what, 80%, 75, 80% of my Catalyst world, of leading Catalyst, was hand-offable.
Right.
So why not hand that off? And most of us, when we get there, as you said, like you're at the top of your game, man. Like you're at the pinnacle of your leadership sort of moment in life. You're leading something like Catalyst that is got. I mean, everything was up and to the right.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
2 years ago, everything was up and to the right. Like all the measurables were the best they'd ever been.
Right.
But for me, it was like, there's some things only I can do that I need to go pursue, and then fill this other gap with with another person or people that can take my place. So I think that's healthy. I think it says something to the one thing I get to talk on the most now, that everybody goes, hey, come on, Brad, real story, what happened? Like you really did make Andy Stanley mad, didn't you? Like that was the reason. Like you hacked him off.
The video really did go too far.
Yeah, the viral video got out there, and then that was it. Like you were gone. No, it was just like, I need to move on. I need to make room. I need to let somebody else step up and lead. And there's other things that I can do in this season that only I can do.
I think that's great. I hope leaders are leaning in on that. I know for me that's a personally challenging thing you're talking about there. I first led, I've been involved in multi-site churches for a long time. The first campus I launched, I was 27 years old when I launched that. And I look now completely embarrassed, a guy early in the 40s, and think I would never let a campus pastor at 27. And and there's a part of me that's like, gosh, that's terrible, right? And I have to, and obviously I'm using a bit of hyperbole there, but actively, actually, just even yesterday, was engaged in a conversation in our environment. Our church literally started as a young adult Bible study. So and what has happened is over the years, we grew from a dozen people at that young adult Bible study. We're like 3,500 people today. But what's happened is we've just continued to get older, and we have to now, I think a part of our challenge is to say, how do we release to that next generation? How do we hand off and not become, 10 years from now, a bunch of guys in their 50s that look around and say, where are all the 20-somethings? Where are all, which so many churches find themselves in. And so, I think fact that you've done that, to me is super, humbling. So that is kind of the at least the emotional, kind of tenor that H3 was written in. Why don't you give us kind of a sense of what that book's about, and why people should be reading it?
Yeah, thank you. Well, and just to put a bow on what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
What I'm not saying, Rich, and for everybody out there who's hearing this going, well, wait, does this apply to me? I'm not saying that applies to everybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It doesn't mean, I've seen lots of leaders who they're 30, 40 years into the same season and the same role and the same title, the same position, and they're crushing it. But it does mean this, that every level of your organization, every leader at every level in every organization, church, nonprofit, business, part of your role is to be looking at your current assignment saying, man, do I need to move on and step out of the way? Right. Because it is part of your legacy and part of your stewardship as a leader to replace yourself.
Yes.
And at every level, not just when you're at the top. We think it's only at the top. It's at every level you're replacing yourself, including the top. And too many times leaders at the top, they get on the top of the mountain and they start getting fat.
Right.
Because there's nothing else to climb. It's like, I'm here, I'm at the top of Everest, man, I'm going to take a smoke break.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're there for 10 or 15 years and everybody is trying to climb up and they're going, you're in the way.
Right.
And so anyway, to your question, for me, the premise of H3 is that I did get to a place in my leadership where I had to recalibrate a little bit for the next 20 years, 30 years of my journey and say, what is it? Let me just redefine and make sure I'm clear on what I would say is my leadership mantra. And H3 is humble, hungry, hustle. That's the three H's. That's been my leadership mantra since I was in my 20s. I didn't know what to call it.
Right.
The other people have those three H's. Those aren't mine. But that seemed to be the phrase: be humble, stay hungry, always hustle. That permeates out of me on a consistent basis. And when the young whippersnapper interns would show up at Catalyst over the years, and they're 22 and they want to change the world, and they say, "Hey, Brad, how do you define your leadership?" That's the way I would define it.
Right.
Is humble, hungry, hustle. And so within those three, what I've tried to do with this book is both tell my story of transition and I did, as you mentioned, I went to London. I took a sabbatical for 6 months before making the decision. Part of that whole process, which I don't want to get into, but there was a pretty significant process for me of how do I step out of leading Catalyst? Because I knew it was time. I could sense that. But then it's like, well, how do you actually do that well?
Right.
And man, the process of doing that well is pretty difficult, especially when your identity is tied to it. We had to kill Catalyst Brad. Catalyst Brad had to be truly shot in the head for that to be a healthy transition.
Right.
And for me to still be the greatest fan of Catalyst and I can show up and hang out and eat peanuts in the green room and feel no sense of bitterness. I'm for the team. I wanted them to succeed. And a lot of times, you transition and then you're telling everybody, oh, I love them, and behind the scenes you're like, I hope that thing fails.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope it tanks, because it'll prove that I was the man.
I was the man, exactly. Yeah.
But there's 20 habits in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Those 20 habits are, for me, those are like my playbook for the next 30 years of my leadership journey, and just trying to make sure that those are instilled into my world, into my leadership. And I think the thing that's helping people with this book that I hear the most response and feedback on is, Brad, thank you for talking about the things you didn't do well, and thank you for being vulnerable with your story. Because I read a lot of books, and first of all, I want them to be practical. If given to my own sort of default of writing, this book would have had like 600 bullet points.
Right.
But the publisher was like, Brad, that's probably not going to be a great book. But I'm just a practical guy, so I want, tell me how to do
Give me the
something.
checklist, yeah.
Tell me how to do something. So there's a lot of checklists in this book, and there's also that sense of, man, thank you for sharing some of the stuff that you don't do well, because I don't learn from people based on successes as much as I do on them talking about the things they haven't done well.
Yeah, it's a great read. I read it when it first came out, and it literally was a page turner. Obviously I think like a lot of leaders, try to be consistently, being challenged by other books. And it's a lot of times you read stuff and it's like, I'm willing myself through this. But the thing I appreciate about your book, Brad, and I said this to you earlier, I appreciate your humility in it and your vulnerability. I think you're just really open, which is similar to the beginning of Andy Stanley's Deep and Wide. I'm like, I've said to people, you just pick up Andy Stanley's Deep and Wide, read the first third, and if the first third doesn't suck you in for the rest of it, then you've got a cold heart. And it's similar with your book. I'm like, I was just drawn in by your story, and then there's just so much in there that is challenging, for me personally. So I really would encourage people to make sure they pick it up. We'll have a link to it in the show notes, and we'll email it out to people and all that. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about kind of what you're up to, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just my name .com. So Brad Lomenick. It's Brad and then LOMENICK.com.
Nice.
And then all the social media outlets, I'm at Brad Lomenick.
No,
I don't think anybody else has that name, so
it's very easy.
I got to have my selection and my choice on first and last name on all the on all the internet outlets of social media-ness.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Brad, I've really appreciated you being on the show today. We should let you go. I know you got other stuff to get to today. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I would just thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for making these conversations available. And I think my encouragement to leaders is first of all, like, you're the place you are right now, listening to this, watching this. A lot of you are frustrated. A lot of you may feel like the dream that you haven't gotten to yet, and just be encouraged that God measures you on faithfulness. And me carrying the mantle of Catalyst with thousands of people was a great season. But man, now I'm carrying the mantle of tens, in the sense that my influence meter and my impact is more being measured on how am I impacting the 10, the 20, the 30 people, the 40 people that I'm getting to spend time with. And that's just as important. Like, I didn't go from strength to weakness.
Right.
I went from strength to strength,
Yes.
So if you got a church of 200, man, crush it. Like, do what you've been called to do with that crew. So that would just be my encouragement, is be faithful. God's placed you somewhere on purpose. You do matter. You're making a difference, and keep it up.
I really appreciate that, Brad. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Don't be shy. We'd love to connect. Check out unSeminary Inbox. You can sign up at unSeminary.com, and we'll send you helpful training resources every week. Plus, you'll gain immediate access to our exclusive members area with tons of resources you can use. Connect with Rich on Twitter at Rich Birch or through email, rich@unseminary.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode at unseminary.com. It includes links to what we talked about today and more. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Did you enjoy today's episode? Drop by iTunes and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's unSeminary podcast. Join us next week when we'll learn more stuff we wish they taught in seminary.